Super Mario RPG is one of the most critically acclaimed RPGs that has ever existed. This game has had the internet in a chokehold for at least 3 decades. And it's easy to see why. For me personally, it's the video game equivalent of a peanut butter and banana sandwich. Two things that you look at and go, this might not pair. But then it does. And it turns out really, really good. Looking back on it, it's kind of funny to imagine that in the 90s in some Japanese boardroom, a couple of guys approached Miyamoto and said, "Hey, we're big fans of what you do. Mario running around the X-axis, but hear us out." Z-axis. The reality, though, is it's kind of a risky move to take Mario from a platformer and shove him into an RPG scenario. Even though about 4 years prior they shoved him into a go-kart and shot him around, so I guess it wasn't that risky. Thank God they took the plunge, because it was a massive success. And to be honest, we probably owe Super Mario RPG for every other spin-off title since then. We're talking Mario Party, we're talking Mario Golf, Mario Tennis. Mario does his taxes on a Sunday afternoon. Who is even the target demographic for this game? And right around the corner, we were about to get Mario in true, honest-to-God 3D. Nintendo fans were eating good. They were feasting. And Mario's stock in popular culture was skyrocketing. Things were looking good for this pesky plumber. The market for 3D video games was explosively huge. And because of that, more competition started to arise. No longer did Nintendo only have to deal with Sega, they now had to deal with Sony. And competition was fierce. Sony, instead of sticking with cartridges like Nintendo had done for the past 100 years, decided they were going to move to a new format. CDs. Don't say CDs nuts, don't say CDs nuts, don't say CDs nuts. What this meant was more data could be stored for video games. Thus, video games were going to start getting more broader, huger scopes, bigger adventures. So much so that sometimes one CD wasn't enough. You would get a game that would have 3 CDs. And as a consumer in the late 90s, having one cartridge for $60 versus 3Ds for $60. Did I say 3D? Having 3 CDs for $60 felt like more of a bang for your buck. Because of this difference in data storage, a lot of companies were starting to become Sony exclusive, specifically Squaresoft. This meant that the likeliness of Super Mario RPG getting some kind of sequel was pretty slim. At the time, this was really disheartening for a lot of fans. But looking back at it in hindsight, it really was a blessing in disguise because we got 2 really good video game series out of that. Paper Mario and the Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga, or I guess just the Mario and Luigi Saga games. As time moved on, consoles came and went. And a lot of people really hoped for a remaster or some kind of port of Super Mario RPG. Did we get one for the GameCube? No. Did we get one for the Wii? No. Did we get one for the Wii U? No. Did we get one for the Switch? No. Wait. Yeah, we did. We are getting one. Pop the champagne bottles, boys. We're getting a Super Mario RPG remake in the Lord's year of 2023. And I think people sort of saw this coming, considering how many Square Enix characters were dumped into Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. Prior to that, when was the last time Square Enix did a collab with the Mario series? Mario Hoops 3-on-3? That's not even a joke. They really did a collab with them on that. This is massive news for people in my age demographic. This is like sliced bread being released. If you were a kid or a preteen in the early 2000s, like the influence of this game on people's creativity back then was crazy. At that time, you couldn't go on Newgrounds and find an animation that didn't use Super Mario RPG music. This was the 2000s version of using Undertale or Deltarune music in videos. Oh, and we loved it, baby. It was awesome. It was great. People were making whole animations. They were writing rap songs about it. I said the game had the internet in a chokehold for 3 decades, but it was not more obvious than at this time. Rightfully, Super Mario RPG took its place in the top big 3 RPGs for the Super Nintendo, right there with Chrono Trigger and Earthbound. And it's easy to see why. We had this beloved character that we have grown to love over the past 10 years, and they finally gave some dialogue and lore, and something just a bit more in-depth than what we've had prior. Before this, the amount of dialogue that you had seen in a Mario game was like a sentence max. And it was always something like, thanks Mario for beating Bowser's ass.
The princess is in another castle, you fucking moron.
And honestly, that's always a winning thing. People love to see a simple character fleshed out. It gives you a dopamine rush. Mario is just a simple dude. He loved to jump, he loved to crush turtles, he had a brother, and he saved princesses. And that's it. But now he has a house, he has a bed, we see his little clothes hanging up. He has a pipe, it's called Pipe House. And now, he doesn't just jump on turtles, he beats the hell out of them with a hammer. Before this, the only time we ever saw the hammer was in like the original Donkey Kong arcade, and it wasn't even that big of a deal then. But ever since then, Mario has always been seen with this trusty hammer. It's just become a part of who he is. And that's kind of funny considering he's a plumber, so you would think it would be like, what, a monkey wrench? But I guess a monkey wrench is a little bit more visceral than like a comical hammer. It's cartoon violence, okay? We can't have Mario running around like Gordon Freeman with a crowbar. RPGs are notoriously dialogue heavy, and that kind of sort of seems like a problem for a character like Mario that's never had a talking role. But thankfully, there was already a trope developed to solve this problem. And that's silent protagonists. Mario does this surprisingly well, and they take it a step further in this game. They make him like the master of charades. He can transform into different things, he flails around, he says what he wants to say without saying it. And the people around him are like, damn, this guy's kind of wacky. We get to see Mario make friends with some one-off characters that never really return, like Mallow or the fan favorite Geno. But most importantly, we get to see two other things. One, we get to see Peach in a role that's not just a princess in distress. While yes, she is in distress at the beginning, she's a playable character that holds her own. We actually get to play as her. We get to, well, I guess we got to play as her in Super Mario Bros. 2, but this feels a little bit different. We get to see her as a kind, big-hearted ruler of her people. This game not only created, but defined the personality traits of Peach that we know and love today. And thing two, and for me probably the most important, is we now get to play as Bowser, who up to this point was always just the bad guy. He was just the giant asshole that you always had to fight at the end of the game. He's a brute, he's egotistical, but he's also really a softie on the inside. And much like Peach, this created and defined the personality of present-day Bowser. And having this rich cast of characters allowed for a lot of interactions and diversity in the way that they talk to each other. No longer were they just an arrangement of pixels on the screen. These were living, breathing creatures and people with ambitions and dreams. So it's safe to say after this game, the Mario universe would never be the same. Much like a lot of people, this game has a very, very special place in my heart, and I am so excited for the remake and that other people who haven't got a chance to experience it can experience it for the first time. Super Mario RPG came out on the Super Nintendo the same year that the Nintendo 64 released, and I think it was the perfect swan song for that console. Now, we already have rumors about the next Nintendo console coming out, and I think that the perfect swan song for the Switch is going to be the Super Mario RPG remake. I'm very excited to try the game again as an adult as opposed to when I played it and experienced it as a child. I'm a different person than I was then. I've grown up, I've experienced life. I'm excited to see how the game will feel to me now. It's also fun to sit back and theorize on maybe what the next console's swan song could be. Who knows? Maybe it could be a remake of another classic. Like Super Mario does his taxes on a Sunday afternoon.